Okay, this is our tic-tac-toe project. As you can see, I've already started some preliminary parts of this. So what I did was I created 4 sprites, and these sprites represent the small x's, the big x's, the small o's, and the large o's. And if you look over here, you could see in each one of these sprites, I just put up the hide and show just so you can see what I'm talking about. So if I press show, you could see where that O is, and I'll press hide again. I'll go on to the large X. Again, I'll press show. You can see where it is, and I'm going to hide it again. For the small x and the small o, they're already showing. I could hide them, the small o, and then show it again. The same thing for the small x. I'm going to, it's already showing, so I can hide it and show it again. Okay, since each box will need one small 0 or O, one small x, we'll need one large X and one large O, I'm going to duplicate each of these. And I'm going to be careful when I name them that I'm going to name them O1 for the first box, O2 for the second box, O3 for the third box, and so on. Those are the large O's. So let's start with that. So I'm going to duplicate, and we are going to go here, show it, and then I'm going to put this one up where it belongs. That looks centered, and then it's already named O2 because it took on from this O1, and it's going with the same system. Let's go to the next one. Let's duplicate, and now this one will be O3, and I'm just going to try to make them look even. I'm going to duplicate this, and this will now be O4, and O4 will go over here. Duplicate again. The good thing about duplicating is that when you duplicate, you also duplicate whatever scripts go along with it. In this case, I just have the hide and the show. So let's duplicate this again. This is O6. Let's go here, duplicate again. O7. Let's duplicate again. O8. And duplicate one more time. O9. Now I want to hide each of these. Hide. 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 Hide O4. Hide O3. It looks like O4 didn't hide. Hide that. And the last one is O2. Where did the O2 go? There's O2. The good thing about numbering them is I know which one they are, even if they fall out of order. And if I wanted to change the order, I would just take, well, they are in order, so I'm not going to go any further there. Now, let's go to the large X. X, we call it X1. Again, let's show it. So there you go. Let's duplicate it. So we're going to duplicate. This is going to be X2. I don't see that sprite, but if you press over here, and you scroll down, you see that it was already numbered X2. Let's duplicate again. We want to be careful not to cover up the black line here. Let's duplicate again. And again, you notice that the lettering is taking on the same format, X4. Duplicate again. Let's duplicate again. Let's duplicate again. This is X7. Move X7 over here. Let's duplicate again. 08 and duplicate again. Again, I chose to find a sprite online. So, and here's the key to it. When you press these sprites, even the white spots here are considered part of the sprite, because as you move them around, you'll notice that the white part is attached to it. So it's part of the sprite, where if you create your own sprite in the drawing tools, you'll notice that the only part you could touch are the actual blue lines, and it's easy to mix them, especially when you're talking about touching the small X's and O's. So that's why I chose to do that. So now we're going to go ahead and hide each of these sprites. Go to X8, hide. Go to X7, hide. Go to X6, hide. By the way, we're going to use these hide and shows in the scripts as we develop them, so I don't mind keeping them here. X5, hide. X4, hide. X3, hide. X2, hide. And up here somewhere is X1, will hide. And what I'm going to do is take this X1 and I'm going to move it down where it belongs, over here. Okay, now they're in order, X1, X2, so on. And they're all hid. They're all there on the board, but they're all hidden. So now we have, let's make this larger because we're going to need a little bit larger now. You see we have O and X, the small O. So again, we're going to have to duplicate these. So let's come up here. Let's move the X1s, the small X1, way down here. Let's see if it's there. Small X1, let's move it over. Okay. Let's do the same with the small O1. And again, I just wanted to remind you that the X's and the O's, when I originally created the small X and the small O, I just took the large X, I duplicated it, and shrunk it. So they're basically the same, from the same, the same JPEG file, JPG file, and I just shrunk them, okay? So let's take the small O's and let's start duplicating. Duplicate, and you see it's cool. It goes from small O1. It'll automatically number small O2. It changes the 1 to a 2. So let's see what that's down here. We're going to put this over here in the corner. Let's duplicate again. Again, that shows up over here. We're going to put it over here. Let's duplicate. I'm only moving one at a time because I think if I try to do them all at the same time, duplicate them and then move them later, I'll get mixed up which one is which. So I'm doing one at a time. Duplicate. 05. See, I could even grab this sprite right in the middle where the white is, and because it's a solid unit, you can do that. I'm going to duplicate again. Now, when I get down to the bottom row, I could do one of two things. I could place it down here, or I could place it over here. So I think I'm going to go that way. Duplicate again. That's over here. And finally, the last one, duplicate over here. Those are the small O's. And let's take the small X. Let's move the small X to the end. So that's our original small X. Let's duplicate. And again, the numbering right away, small X2, so that's good. We know which one that is. Again, it is extremely important that you don't lose track of which one of these sprites go in which box. And by this numbering system, small x2, you know that it goes in the second box if we number the boxes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, let's duplicate again. Let's take this sprite. Where did it go? It went way up here. Let's duplicate again. Duplicate again. Duplicate again. Duplicate number 7. Duplicate number 8. And duplicate the last one. And that was good programming practice. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to save now, just so all the changes I've made so far I keep, and if for some reason the system crashes, I don't lose all the work I've done so far. Okay, so now we've created 36 sprites, 9 large zeros, 9 large X's, which are hidden, 9 small zeros, or O's, and 9 small X's. There's 8 more sprites that we have to create. There's going to be a line that goes here if the winning combination is across the top. There's another one here and another line here. There's one line here, one line here, one line here. All of those lines is if the winning combination is going in this direction. The last 2 lines are going to be the diagonal lines. This one and this one. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to create a new sprite by drawing. I want to change to a color that's going to be very apparent, so I'm going to make mine red. Make the line slightly larger. And here's the X. You got to make sure your line goes through the X. And I'm going to make this as straight as possible so that the lines look straight. And I can increase the size afterwards if I need to. Now you notice this over here. Here's the line. So we're going to make this the top line. And we are going to name this line. We are going to name this top row win. How about top row wins? Okay. Go back here. And now top row wins. We're going to make a new one. Or we can actually take this one and duplicate it. Let's delete this one. Let's come down here. Let's duplicate. But this one, we're going to move to the middle. And we're going to call this one, instead of top row wins, we're going to call it middle row wins. Go back here. And then we're going to duplicate this one. And this one, we're going to take it and drag it down here. And I bet you could guess what we're going to call this. We're going to call it bottom row wins. Okay, makes sense? Good. Now we're going to create, oh, by the way, we can hide each one of these sprites. So let's take this, go back to scripts. We're going to take looks. Again, we're going to put the show and the hide up here and not together, and we're going to just hide it. So now it disappears. We're going to do the same thing here. Show and hide. And again, we're going to hide this. And we're going to go to the third one. And we're going to drag over hide and show. And we're actually going to hide this one. Now let's create 3 more sprites that are each of the lines if they win in one of the columns. So let's go over here to new sprite. And we're gonna, again, we're already in red, so we're fine. Pick the line, and we're going to go straight through the middle. Again, as much through the middle. I'm going to try to make this as, it's hard to tell if this is exactly straight down because my eyesight is not as good as it once was. But anyway, that's actually no good. That's too slanted over. So I'm going to delete this one. And let me create a new one. Again, new sprite. We're going to pick a line. It's red. And as much as possible, we're going to try to draw a straight line. Let that go. And that looks pretty darn straight to me. So let's move this over where it belongs. So this will be good if the left column wins. So let's name this. Left column wins. And I want you to make note that this line will light up, or this line will show whether it's zeros that win, or O's that win, or X's that win. So we're just going to call it left column wins. And we're going to go back here. And we're going to duplicate. And this next one will be the one for the center. And we're going to call this middle column wins. And go back here. And we're going to duplicate one more time. Let's move this into place. And we are going to call this, you guessed it, right column wins. Okay, we have 2 more sprites to make. We have one that's going to go up this way. First, before we do that, we're going to hide each of these. So let's go to scripts. Let's put in a little show and a little hide because we will need both of those anyway. Let's hide the left one. Let's go over here. Let's put a show and a hide. Let's hide the middle one. And we're going to go to the right one. And we're going to show. And we're going to hide. And we're going to hide the middle one, the right one. So now they're all hidden. They're there, but they're hidden. Now we're going to make the two last sprites. Again, we're going to go here. And we are going to draw a line. And it's red. And we're going to start down here diagonally. Make sure you go through the center. And I don't know how this is going to look until we do it. And I'm not crazy about that. It has to have a little bit more of a slope. So let's delete this. Let's go back here. Let's draw another one. So knowing what we just figured out, we're going to draw another line with a little bit more of a slope. And that might be good. Let me see. Let's move it. That's too much. Again, we'll delete one more time. And we're going to try it one more time. This time we're going to be perfect. We're going to start roughly over here. And we'll go to the center. Let's see what that looks like. I think that looks much, 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 much better. Look at that. Okay. We're going to call this one, now, since these were left, middle, and right column wins, we're going to call this slope up wins. Not sins, but wins. Okay? And now we are going to try to create the last one. again, choose the drawing tool. We're going to come over here. We already have a line picked. And knowing what we know about the slope of the line, we're going to draw it roughly like this. And let's see what happens. Let's move this over. And that looks pretty darn good. So we're going to keep that one. And we're going to call this slope down winds. Okay. Go back here. Let's go back here and go back to scripts and put our little show and hide in here. And we're going to hide this one. And we are going to do the same for this one so that they don't disturb us as we go ahead. We're going to hide this. It's a cool feature. If you ever wanted, you ever lose your sprites, you're not sure where they are, if you put a little show up here and a little hide, you can hide them and show them, and you can find them, find where they are, and it could help you locate them, because very often they'll get hidden behind something, or they'll be hidden and you're not sure where they went. Put a little show on the screen. Even if you just want to find it, that way you could show it and you could see where it is. Okay, so now we've made our 36 sprites plus 8 lines, which are actually sprites. So that's 36 plus 8, there's 44 sprites in this thing. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our backdrop. Again, I did this before because it takes a lot of time and it's kind of tedious to draw these backdrops. But you can see I drew my original backdrop, and then all I did was take that backdrop and I drew the one that says you must press an X. I also have to do the same thing that says you must press an O. So I'm going to take my original, just like we did before. We're going to take the backdrop, we're going to right click it, duplicate it, and then we're going to put a text box in it. Click the text box up here and say no, we do not want the red color. We want black. And again, press up here. You must press, hit return, a O. I guess that would be NO. Okay. And I think I'm going to put the return here and backspace here. I put it up in the corner here so it wouldn't interfere with the grid over here. So I'll do that for this this whole set. Excuse me. Okay. We have another one to make. Now, again, I told you yesterday when I first introduced this that we're going to have 6 backdrops. One, if you must, is you must press an O. If you try to press an X and you're supposed to press an O, this screen should pop up. If you meant to press an O and you press an X, the opposite one will show up. The next one is if X wins. So again, we're going to duplicate, but we're going to put a text box in here that says X wins. Let's just move it so it's a little bit further down. If you want, you can make it slightly larger. Okay. And I'm going to actually name these. Watch this. This is our normal backdrop. This is press an X. This one we're going to call press an O. This one should be X wins. Okay. We are going to duplicate this again, and we are going to put O wins. Press over here. Get my arrow to make it slightly larger. Grab it, move it over to the corner. And our final backdrop will be one where there's a draw. So we're going to duplicate, come down here, and we are going to say something like, it's a draw. Grab it, enlarge it, put it where it's more visible. I wanted to rename this one draw, and I wanted to rename this one O wins. So that way it's very easy for us to figure out which backdrop goes in what scenario. Okay, now, once you get going in drawing up the scripts for these different sprites, you're going to realize that most of these over here are our large O sprites. These are our large X sprites. These are our small O sprites, and these are our small X sprites. Once you do one, you're going to notice, so once I do the first small O1, the small O2 is very, very similar with just a couple of minor changes. So what I'm going to do is give you the complete script for the small O1 sprite. We'll finish that, and then I'll tell you how the O1 differs. So what I'll do is I'll take the finished script for the small O1. I'm going to drag it over to the small O2 and then make those minor changes that we need to make. So first thing I'm going to do is press on the O1, go to scripts. Now, I'm going to put these over here and put this over here. Now, here's the very interesting thing. If say I'm in, we're small O. If I press this, or if I press this, both of them will disappear, no matter which one I press. If I press this one, the large O will appear, but both of these will disappear. Likewise, if I press the small x, both the small x and the small O will disappear, and the large X will appear. Now, one of the things we've learned is that when you press one sprite, but then you have actions that take place on other sprites, the best way to do that is with the broadcast function. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start each sprite and say, when clicked. Well, what do we want to do with this sprite when clicked? You want to make sure if it's erased from the previous game, you want to make sure that it shows. Okay? Next thing is we take our very familiar forever loop, because we want this to happen forever, whenever it happens, not just at the moment that the flag is clicked. So now we want to have an if then. Now, what triggers anything to happen? If the mouse is over and the mouse is clicked, or the mouse is down. So we have two events that have to happen. So we're going to go to operators. We're going to go to and there are two sensings. If it's touching the mouse pointer and the mouse is down. Mouse is down means basically that the mouse is clicked. So if those two things are happening, if the mouse is over this particular sprite, we're talking about the small O, and then you click it or the mouse is down, then what's going to happen? Well, here we have to go, here we have to realize if the game is beginning, if this is the first move of the game, certain things are set. If this is the first move, I want you to remember that we had two variations that had to happen. If O went first, that we called that variation 2. If X went first, that's called variation 1. So first thing we need to do is go to data, and we have to make a variable, and we're going to call this variable variation. And we're going to say for all sprites. because all sprites have to be able to read this. Okay, so here, since we're talking about the O sprite, small o, if this is pressed, this will be variation 2. So if it's round 1, so let's go back for just a second. If it's touching, if this is round 1, so we're going to need another if inside here. So if it's touching, there's two possibilities. Either it's round 1 or it's not round 1. So if it's round 1, so if, and now we have not made the round data yet. Again, we have to make a data called round. Now round means, in tic-tac-toe, there's 9 rounds. First round is when the first player goes. Second round is when the second player goes. The third round, and so on, is when the third player goes, up to 9 rounds. So we're going to make this variable called rounds. And then we're going to take that variable. If round, it says if this is the first round. I think I just lost it. If round equals 1. I don't know what happened there. If round is 1, if this is the first move of the game, we pressed an O, therefore the variation, we're going to set variation to 2. Beautiful. Now, this is very important. Depending on which sprite we pick, this particular box will be set. Now watch this. We are going to have to create a variable for each box to determine whether an O was put in that box or if an X was put in that box. So, therefore, we have to have a variable for each box. We're going to make variables, and we're going to call this, the first one, B1 for box 1, and make a variable B2 for box 2. We're going to have B3, make a variable B4. I wish there was a way to do this quicker, but you have to do it one at a time. B5, B6, B7, B8, and B9. And those are all the variables we will need for this game. So, since this is the O that goes in the first box, this can't set any other box other than the first box. And since we're clicking an O, we said if we pick an O, that box will be set to 2. If we pick an X, that box will be set to 1. So since we have an O, and it's in the first box, we are going to have to set the first box, B1, equal to, again, it's an O, so we're going to set it equal to 2. And now we're going to broadcast. Now, again, because we press the O, 3 things have to happen. O has to hide, X has to hide, and the big O has to show. So again, we have one. Oh, by the way, I want to hide all these variables. I don't want those to show. So watch what I do. I unclick the boxes next to these variables, and all of these variables will now not show. The only 2 that we really want to show are what round it is and the variation, variation 1 or variation 2, depending on whether the X or the O goes first. Okay? So again, at this point we pick this O. Now we want this O to hide, we want this X to hide, and we want the big O to show. So since one sprite is going to affect other sprites, the best thing we're going to do is go to what we call broadcast. We're going to broadcast a message. What message do we want to send? We want to send them a new message that the O in the first box is pressed. So why don't we just say O1, was pressed. Okay? And since this is round 1, there's no possibility that this was a mistake. In other words, we pressed an O, but we should have pressed an X. The first move of the game, there is no mistake. Whatever is pressed, that sets the variation, and you have no, there's no bad choice there. Okay, we're going to press O, and then I want to wait. We always like to wait after you broadcast, so that it has time to broadcast to something else before anything else happens. So we're just going to put a small wait. When I say small wait, I think just 0.2 seconds. Just because after you broadcast, other things can happen. You just want to give it a chance for other things to happen, for this broadcast to take place. So now, what gets affected for this broadcast when O1 was pressed? Well, one of the things that happened is O1 is going to hide. So watch this. O1, since we are in O1, or small O1, we're going to go to when I receive that O1 was pressed. What am I going to do? I'm going to hide. Now, what else is going to hide? Small x is going to hide. Let's scroll down to small x. And we're also going to say, when I receive O1 was pressed, we're going to hide. And we could drag that down here. Now, the other thing that's going to happen is big O is going to show. So big O is O1. So go here, and again, when I receive O1 pressed, what am I going to do? I am going to show. And the other thing I'm going to do with each one of these large ones is that you want it to originally hide. You want all the big ones to hide, all the large O's and all the large X's. So I'm also going to put when clicked, they're going to hide. And I do that because from the previous game, Scratch always starts off from where you were in the previous game. So if that particular X or O was showing, you want to make sure it's hidden. So when clicked, you're going to hide. But when I receive O1 was pressed, you're going to show. Okay, so those are two standalones that are going to stay over there, and we'll add more onto that later. I'm going to go back to the small O, and we're going to add some other stuff. So that can stay up here to the side. Now, I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I also want you to realize that if X1 was pressed, in other words, X1 is this one. It's really small x1. The sprite is called small x1, right? But for the purpose of a message, I can make the message whatever I want. So I can also say when I receive, I'm going to make a new message. When X1 is pressed, it's also going to hide, right? All right, so it doesn't matter whether the small x is pressed or the small O is pressed or the small x is pressed. Both of these are going to hide no matter which one. So when I receive that X1 was pressed, and you see where I had the broadcast X1 was O1 was pressed. When I eventually do the scripts for this, I'm going to have the same thing going on. Like I said, there's a lot of duplication here. That means that when I go over here and I have the small O1 pressed, when this whole script gets transferred over to the small x's, this is not going to broadcast O1 was pressed. It's going to broadcast X1 was pressed. Okay, makes sense? And these two will also happen in the small O1 script. Okay, makes sense? I hope so. Okay, now, we have a small little problem. If, not a major problem, no, it's not really a problem. Yes, there is a little problem. I am going to take this here, and instead of using an if statement, I'm actually going to use an if else. Now watch what we're going to do. Come up here, we're going to take the if else. Okay? We're going to take the round one, we're going to put it over here, and we're going to take these lines and put them right in here. So the only thing that really changed is instead of an if statement, we have an if else statement. And the difference is if else means if this is true, this set of commands take place, else. So what is the if statement? The if statement is if it's round one. So every other round after that, we have to do a test. And the test is to make sure that it's the proper turn. In other words, if you did X first, you have to make sure that it's time for O to go. So you're going to do that test. Now, let's recap. If X goes first, that's called variation 1. If O goes first, that's called variation 2. If X goes first in variation 1, that means X should go on the first turn, the third turn, the fifth turn, the seventh turn, and the ninth turn. All the odd turns. So for variation 1, X should only go on odd turns. If it's variation 2, X's should only go on the second, the fourth, the sixth, and the eighth. If we go back to the O's, that's variation 2. So if it's variation 2, that means the O's go on the first, third, fifth, seventh, and ninth turn. If it's variation 1, the O's go on the second, fourth, sixth, and eighth. I hope that's not confusing, but if you think about it, if X goes first, then O has to go every other time. O will go on the even turns. If O goes first, X's will go on the even turns. That's basically what it means. The way we write this in computer terminology is we have to get an if statement. So here's our if statement. If so what we're going to do now is make sure, by the way, this is going right up into here. And this if statement is going to go, again, I don't know why that would popped up. And this if statement is going to go right in here. Let me make sure that's correct. No, I'm sorry, I made one other mistake. This is also going to be another if else statement. Okay? Because there's two possibilities. If that test is true, that it's the O is supposed to go on that turn. Don't forget, if this happens right here, if this is round 1, so if it's not round 1, it's round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, we have to do a test to make sure it's the proper turn for X to go or Y to go. Here's the test. We are going to have an if statement, which we have here. Now, if operator, there's two possibilities. So we're going to drag OR out here. We're going to drag it over here. So if it's the first variation, so watch this. If variation equals 1. So again, we're talking about X's. If it's variation 1 and the round is even, then O can go. So if this is true, if variation 1 and the round, now here's how we check for the whether the round is even or not. We use this function mod. It's actually short for something in computer science that we call modulus. If the round mod 2 Okay, so basically what this means is every number divided by 2, any number divided by 2 is either equal to 0 or 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2, remainder 0. So the remainder is the portion we're worried about. If the remainder is 0, that means it's an even number. If the remainder is an odd number, for instance, 9 divided by 2 is 4, remainder 1. The remainder is 1, that means 9 was an odd number. So if variation is 1 and round mod 2 equals 0, in other words, it's an even round, then it's okay. Then it's okay to go. That makes sense? Or I'm going to put this whole thing, but before we do that, I want to duplicate this whole thing, and we're going to change it slightly. So two possibilities. It's variation 1, x goes first, therefore 0 goes next on all the evens, so round mod 2 is 0. Or if it's variation 2 and round mod 2 is odd, in other words, O goes in variation 2, O will go on the 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, so round mod 2 will be odd. So if either of these is true, this or this is true. It sounds rather complicated, but this is what computer logic is very good at. Again, I don't know why this thing keeps popping up, but so if either of those is true, then we're okay. We could go. So watch this. So then, if this is true and this is true, now don't forget, if either of these is true and we pressed B1, we press the O in B1, that means that O1, this one hasn't been pressed before. So again, we're going to set data, set B1 to, don't forget this is an O, so we set B1 to 2. We're going to broadcast, same thing we did here. We're going to broadcast that O1 was pressed. Okay, so again, if this O1 was pressed, it'll be received here, and it will also be received in small x1 when O1 was pressed. It will be also received by big O1. Okay, so you're starting to see how the broadcast will affect the other sprites. Okay, so that's it right there. And then we're going to, again, take that little 2-second thing, 0.2 seconds, and we're going to put it here again, just to give it time for everything to happen. So if the mouse touches, if you touch this little O, and if it's round 1, you're going to set the variation to 2. Then you're going to set B1 to 2. You're going to broadcast that O1 was pressed. You're going to wait 2 seconds. If it's not round 1, in other words, it's round 2 or 3 or 4, anything up to 9, you're going to do the test to make sure it was O's turn to go. Okay, and all the O's, all the small O's are going to share the same test. So once we do it for 1, we can duplicate it and do it for all the others. We're going to set B1 equal to 2, and in the case that we were pressing O2, we're going to broadcast O2 was pressed. The same thing here, we'll press O2 was pressed, and we're going to also set B2 equal to 2. Okay? Again, once you make the first move, the variation set, that doesn't change. It only happens on round 1. Okay? Now, what happens if this test here was not true. In other words, it's round 2. You did this test, and this test was not true. In other words, it was not time, or you pressed an O, and you were supposed to press an X. That's where we get into this whole thing, where we're going to switch the backdrop. So we go to Looks. We're going to switch backdrop to, now, we tried pressing an O. We were supposed to press an X. So we're going to switch the backdrop to press an X. We want that to stay up for just a couple of seconds. So we're going to go to Control. Wait 1 second. That's enough time. That's enough time for you to see the message. And then we want to go back to the normal backdrop and allow you to keep playing. So then we're going to go back to Look. We're going to go switch backdrop. Don't forget the backdrop is the one where it had that little, up here you see O wins. That's one particular backdrop. The backdrop we're talking about is the backdrop up here that says you must press an O or you must press an X. In this case, you must press an X because that possibility said that we were supposed to press the X and we tried pressing an O. Go back to scripts. Let's go back to small O. And here's the script. And believe it or not, this right here is the complete script that you need for small O. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to click and I'm going to drag this whole script. By the way, before we do anything else, let's go to File, Save Now. I probably should have done it before, just in case things messed up. But I did it now. So everything at this point is saved, and I think this is 100% of the script we need for each of these small ones. So I'm going to take this whole thing, I'm going to drag it over to, now watch what happens. You got to be very careful when you get close to the one you want to drag it to. It might go up and down. Okay, I drag it over here. I also want to drag this over. Again, this thing keeps popping up. I don't know what I'm doing when that happens, but it happens. I put this over here, and I put this over here. Okay, let's go over here. Let's go to O2 and look at this. I have all the scripts ready to go. I'm going to make a couple of changes, and this will be ready to go. You see this hide here? That was left over. We can get rid of it now. And that show was left over. Let's get rid of that, just so it doesn't get in our way. Now, the only difference between this, the small O1 and small O2, is the same thing happens here. If round 1, set the variation to 2. Again, if this is the first move of the game, we're going to set the variation to 2. But instead of setting B1 to 2, we're going to set B2 to 2, because this is small O2, which goes in B2. And then we're going to set, instead of saying O1 was pressed, what do you think we're going to do? O2 was pressed. Okay? It's a very logical. Once you get one of these things going, same thing here. O2 was pressed. Once you create the message here, that message will become part of the drop-down menu in each one of these things. Oh, this one won't change, because this one is actually going to change. This one we haven't created yet. This one should be if X2 was pressed, because don't forget, the small O will hide either if X2 was pressed or O2, small O2 was pressed. So we could actually create that message right now. We're going to say X2 was pressed. Okay, and that message now is in there, and when we use it later on for some of the other sprites, it will already be there. It will be created. Okay, so we did B2 up here. We have to do B2 here, and we have to say O2 was pressed, and again, switch backdrop to X. This does not change. Again, if you pick this at the wrong time, this is a test for O's. For all the small O's, we'll have the same test. So if that's not true, it's going to, again, switch to here and say press an X, switch back to a normal backdrop. Okay, so you can speed up a little bit now. Now that you see how each of these changes, now we're going to take this and we're going to drag it over the small O. Do not let go of that until. All right, here's our small. These things get a little tricky. I want to get it right here. Make sure it's right over there and let go. Let's see if it copied to the right one. It did. Very happy about that. Let's get rid of hide. Let's get rid of show. That's here. We're going to need two other things. We are going to need this and this. And watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over here and put it into this one. Put it into this one. And put it into this one. Again, this gets a little tricky. Slow it down. There you go. It's a little tricky, but it's easier than trying to copy these manually. Let go. Let go. Let go. We're up to X6. Let go. Oh, come on, stay there. I don't know if that made it. It's not. Come back. As long as the big one made it, that's the most important one. Let go. Let go. And let go. We have two more to go. Hope I didn't get that out of order. No, it looks like it's good. Big one. Go over to 08. And then the small one. Again, I don't know if that made it to the right one or not. If it didn't, small 03 might have an extra one. And last one. Let go. The two small ones. And the other small one. Okay. Let's go to each of these. This is the one we were just. So this one should be set. Let's go to the next one. Now, the only difference here, when you drag them over, they all pile on top of one another. So what do you think we're going to do here? New message. X3 was pressed. And O3 was pressed. And O3 was pressed. And B3, because this is the third one, and B3, and O3. So you see that? So this was changed, this was changed, this, and this. So the 6 changes we need to make on each one. Let's go over here. We have this. I think this is one of the ones where we lost one of these things. It's not over here, but it's all we have to do is take this, duplicate it, and now this is sprite 4. New message. If O4 was pressed, we're going to hide or new message. If X4 was pressed. Okay. So this is again, this is 04. So we're now, instead of B2, this is going to be B4. This is going to be 04. This is going to be B4. And this is going to be 04. 04, B4, 04, B4, 04, and X4 was pressed. So those are the changes there. Let's go to the next one. Again, 1, 2. This is the fifth one, so this should be new message X5. X5 was pressed. This one should say 05 was 05 was pressed. This should be B5 equals 2. This should say 05 was pressed. This should say 05 was pressed. And this should say B5. Again, it's just once you do one of them, the rest follow exactly in order. 02. And this is another one where I think I lost the extra piece. We're going to have to find those because we want to make sure that there's nothing straggling around that's going to mess anything else up. This is small 06. So when 06 was pressed, 06 was pressed, we're going to take this, we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to make a new message if X6 was pressed. X6 was pressed. Okay. X6, 06. So we're going to hide. We're going to go over here, and this is B6. This is B6. This is 06 was pressed. And when you start to get more comfortable, you might move too quickly, and you want to be careful because if one of these little things you miss it or click the wrong one, all of a sudden you're going to notice when you click up here, the wrong thing might happen. Then you might say, well, I thought I did everything right. Why am I pressing 06 and maybe 05 will disappear? Well, that's because you might have accidentally put in 05 was pressed, and you could see how that could trigger something else to happen that was unexpected. So just take care that when you're going over here, you double check these before you finish off this sprite. B6, B6, X6, 06. Let's go file save, just in case things happen and there's a disaster and your computer shuts down. Everything was saved to that point. We're going to go to 07. You have this one. You have this one. And we have this. And let's get rid of these stragglers. Let's go back up here. Let's go over here. Now we're on sprite 7, 07. So we're going to have new message 07 was pressed. And the same thing here, but with X. X7 was pressed. You're going to have to change this to B7. You're going to have to change this to 07. You're going to have to change this to 07. And you're going to have to change this to B7. So those are the 6 changes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6 changes on this one. Let's go to 8. Let's go up here. Again, we're missing one of these. Let's get rid of these. We don't need these anymore. And let's go up here. 02 was pressed. Let's duplicate it. And this should say if, since we're on number 8, this should be a new message if 08 was pressed. And this should say if X8 was pressed. X8 was pressed. That's two changes. This should say 08. This should say 08. This should say B8. And this should be B8. Okay. Save. And the last of the O's. 1, 2, hide, hide, or I ditch them. I'm sorry, ditch them. And this should say if X9 was pressed. And this should say if O9 was pressed. Okay, and then O9 over here, O9 over here. This should say B9 and B9. Again, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 changes on this one. Okay, we've done all the O's. Now we're going to do the X's. So, the cool thing is, the X's and the O's are very similar, except for a couple of minor changes, and I'll show you what they are. So, since that's the case, what I'm going to do is take the small o, go to the script for the small o. Now look at this. Remember those extra ones that I had floating around? I think I saved them to the wrong place. This is one of them. Okay. So there's a couple, there's one or two more that are floating around. Let's just see if we can find them. That's good. This should be X3. Oh, there's one of the extra ones. So these all have to say X3 or O3. In the fourth one, O4s, it doesn't look like there are any extras lying around. O5s, we can get rid of that little extra high there. That's from when we were testing the functions, and there's another show around. Let's get rid of that. Let's go back to 06. Doesn't look like anything extra. 07. That looks good. 08. And 09. Just be aware that sometimes when you drag things over to copy them to new sprites, they could accidentally go to the wrong sprite. So go back, check it out as you check them out, and get rid of any extra garbage. So let's go back to small o, 1. And we're going to drag the script for small o1 over to small x1. And then we're going to make a couple of small changes. So small x1, slow it down. Make sure you're there. We're there. And I want to show you something. Small x1 already has when I received O1 was pressed. It's going to need when x1 was pressed. So we can take this, duplicate it. And now the message is already there because we created all the messages already. X1 was pressed. So this means that the small x will disappear either if the small o is pressed or if the small x is pressed. That takes care of that, and we're on x1. So now, here are the differences for the x. We're going to it still says if round is round 1, but if you press an x, it's going to set the variation to 1. And B1, if you press an x, will not be set to 2. It will be set to 1. And we're not broadcasting that O1 was pressed. We're broadcasting that X1 was pressed. Same thing here. X1 was pressed and set B1 equal to 1. So again, look at this. The other changes that are going to happen for all of the x's is that the mistake is going to be made that you pressed an x, you pressed the x, but it wasn't the x's turn. So it's actually going to prompt you to press an O. Okay? But once you made this change for this x, this is going to stay the same for all the small x's. So we only had to make a change for the first one when we dragged the script for the small x over to the small, for the one from the small o over to the small x. Okay, so that's one major change. So we have x1, b1 is 1, b1 is 1, and we switch the variation to 1. O1 is pressed, x1 was pressed, x1 was pressed, x1 was pressed. The other changes that are going to happen to all the x scripts is this test over here. Now you can't really see it, so I'm going to switch over here so we can see this whole thing here. Now let's think about this. If variation is 1, that means, in other words, when you press the x first, that's variation 1, that means the x's are only going to go on the odd term. You press the x first, that means the x's will go on 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So that means if variation is 1, this has to be odd, and it's odd if this is 1. Okay? Or if it's variation 2, that means O went first, x is going to go during the even numbers. So that's different. Those two numbers have to change when you're talking about the small x sprites. And now what we're going to do now is drag this over. So let's go back now that we made those changes. Now that you made this change, it's going to be the same for all the x sprites. Now watch this. Again, this doesn't change. If the round is 1, you're going to, and x goes first, you're going to set the variation to 1, and you're going to set b1 equal to 1, showing that x was don't forget we're on this sprite, which is in this box, so we have to set the b1 to 1. Broadcast the fact that x1 was pressed. Wait 2 seconds. When I receive x1 was pressed, this is going to hide. And don't forget back over here, when this receives that x1 was pressed, this is also going to hide. This is the small o. So both the small x and the small o are going to hide when x1 is pressed. Okay? Let's go back to the small x1. So that's all taken care of. I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag it over to small x2. Let's drag this over to small x3. Let's go down a little bit. Let's drag this over to x4. Let's drag this over to x5. Let's drag this over to x6. Isn't it great? Once we make it complete for one, we could just drag it to all the other ones. Drag it to 7, and drag it to 8, and drag it, let's get rid of that little thing there. Before we drag it to the last one, let's scroll down here, and drag it to 9. Okay? Now, we have to go edit the remaining x's. So watch this, x1. So this doesn't change. Set the variation to 1, that doesn't change. But now we're talking about box B2. Because now you're pressing this x. And you're going to broadcast the fact that x2 was pressed. Same thing here, x2 was pressed. And we're going to set B2. Now what we didn't do is we didn't copy over the when I receive. So we could do this here. When I receive, and we could duplicate that. And what are we doing? If I receive the fact that either O2 was pressed or X2 was pressed, what are we going to do? We are going to hide. I'm just going to show you. I mean, you could have copied it from the other ones, but if you didn't want to copy, we could just do it this way. O2, X2. So in other words, X will hide if either this or this is pressed. Okay. And we made the changes here. This is small x2, so B2, X2, X2, B2. So all those 6 things were changed. Okay. Now I could go over here and just drag this over here and deal with this. And I could do that all for the remaining ones. I haven't found a way to do this for multiple. I hope that went to the right one. If it's not, it went to the one right above it. When I receive, keep track of which ones you're working on. I'm up to X6. I'm up to X6. I'm up to X7. I'm up to X7. I'm up to X8. I'm up to X8. And let's scroll down. I'm up to X9. I'm up to X9. Let's go to each one and edit them. Let's go to X3. So these 2 are here. That's good. We're going to change it to O3 and change this to X3. We're going to change this to B3. We're going to change this to X3. So it all makes sense, and that's the reason why you want to put these things in order. So you know that X3 is in box 3, and you don't get confused. Otherwise, it's very easy to get confused. Let's make this X3. Let's make this B3. X3, B3. X3, B3. O3. X3. It looks like everything's okay. Let's go to the next one. Let's go over here and save the work we've done so we don't lose it. X4. We have one of these, but we don't have one of the other ones. So it looks like one of those got lost. So we're going to have to go look for that later on. When we go check them all, we'll make those checks at the end. So we're talking about X4. So let's make this O4. Let's duplicate and make this X4. So we have X4 and O4. We got B4. We have X4. We have B4. And we have X4. Again, six changes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let's go to X5. B5. Let's move this over here. Let's move this over here. Make this O5. This X5. Let's make this. Make sure there's no garbage back here. Let's get rid of that. Change this to B5, X5, X5, B5. Again, all of this stays the same. X5, B5, X5, B5, X5, O5. Let's go on to 6. And let's see this. We have this. We have this. This is sprites. X, small x6. So we're on O6, X6, X6, B6, B6, and X6. Again, we made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 changes for this one. X7, take this, we're on sprite 7, so we're going to change this to O7, X7, X7, B7, B7, X7. 2 more sprites to go. Let's go to small X8. Go up here. That's going to be 8. That's going to be 8. So O8, X8. We're going to go B8, X8. We're going to go to X8, B8. I know this is tedious, but taking care to do this correctly will make sure that your program works the first time and you're not going to have to go back and check it out and find out why something is going out of order. Let's go over here, over here. This is the last one, 9. So O9, X9, B9, X9, another X9, and another B9. Okay, so what I want to do right now is let's go back to File, Save. Now, what I wanted to do with just one of these sprites is I wanted to set all our variables, the initial conditions of our variables. Now, don't forget, we're setting all the B, or the B1, B2, B3, either equal to 1 if you press an X in that box, or 2 if you press a 2 in that box. But left over from the previous program, you want to make sure that there's not a 2 or a 1 left in any boxes. So when we start a new game, every time we start a new game, we want to set all the B's to 0, so there's nothing in them. So I am going to choose either the small o or the small x. I'm going to just choose the small x. And watch what I'm going to do. I want to, before we even show it, and you only have to do this in one of these, for one of these sprites, and you're setting it for all of the sprites. So we're going to go to Data. We are going to set all of the B's equal to 0. So duplicate. Watch what I do. If I press the top one, it'll do 2 at a time. If I press up top, it'll do 8 at a time. And now there's 9 boxes, so I need 1 more. So I'm going to set all the boxes B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, B7, B8, all equal to 0 to start the game. There's 2 other variables. There's round. So we want to set the round at the beginning of the game. We're going to set the round to 1 because the game starts with round 1. Last variable is the variation. We don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know what the previous game was. So what we're going to do is we're going to set variation to 0. And then we're going to drag this back in place. So this is the same exact as all the other small x, except We add all the preconditions onto one of these, and we're going to put it onto the x one, and for no particular reason. I could have put it on any one of the small x's or any one of the small y's. It's just a good thing to do is put it on one of the small x's. Okay, we are going to stop for now, and I'm going to pick this up in a little while.